Good. While my PowerPoint is recovering, yep, you can hear me again. Very good. Don't send. Oh no, now everything's opening again. All right. Your portfolio. Just in connection to what we just discussed in the previous hour, and some of the conversations that I had over coffee is. Yes, one comment was made about your teaching load and accommodating the AdjunktPædagogikum. Please, please, please contact your head of department or department administrator who is in charge of managing your teaching hours. You should be deducted a certain amount of your teaching hours for this year in order to accommodate the work that you have to invest into the AdjunktPædagogikum. This has been arranged for the entire university, and but there are slight differences in the amount of hours that are going to be deducted from your teaching load. So that's why I'm a little bit reluctant in giving you the exact hours. But you are, there are arrangements being made for this to be accommodated. Please talk to the head of department who is the responsible person for doing that. And if there are issues also, please contact me, and I'm happy to discuss this with people or your head of department if people don't know about this. So you shouldn't have the same teaching load as under normal circumstances. The other thing I wanted to say was that comments were made about suggestions for additional workshop topics or things that could be discussed. For example, some introduction into some basic higher education pedagogy or some basic principles in pedagogy. And the other suggestion was made to have something on the use of PowerPoint to support your teaching. We are organizing this at the moment, but it's more likely that we will offer this as not like the workshops as 2 half days, but as one presentation that may be a half day or so. So it's not in the same format, but we are just organizing who could be doing that and when. For example, any basic introduction to higher education pedagogy or so would be ideal to come up front. So you will hear from us via Moodle over the next week or so. So you will, we will then announce when we will do these additional presentations to support you during the AdjunktPædagogikum. Good. So now I'm going to continue with the portfolio, and let's make sure that this. Yeah. The portfolio is both a process and a product. So some of you, depending on the discipline that you're working in, may be already used to using teaching portfolios, and to others this will be quite a new practice. As a general thing, and this is important for you to know, the university is going to introduce teaching portfolios, a new template in fact, and I'm going to share that with you. It is currently being trialed and will be fully implemented by mid-year, and we are going to work with this template so that you already know what's in there. And this is a is a template of a portfolio that is pretty much in this format, or a slightly different version, but content-wise the same as in many other universities. So it's pretty standard. The portfolio should be a document that has some evidence of your teaching, and I'll explain what this means. Also, and should show your achievements, any courses, any qualifications, anything that is valued, and where you had feedback from your peers, that should be in there, whether it's a course, whether it's something that you have published also. And it's also something that is really constantly developing. So it is not something that you do once, but as a teacher at university, you should evaluate and update your teaching portfolio all the time, at least once a year. So the teaching portfolio is a collection of documents that provide a record of your ideas, objectives, that inform your teaching. It really shows, is a very individual document. You come from different backgrounds. You may have taught in different places before you came to AAU. Here at this university, you are gaining some very specific insights. So, for example, through PBL, you will be using a very specific way of teaching, and this can be very nicely, accommodated in your teaching portfolio, and it's going to be very insightful. For example, if you ever change universities also, and you take this with you, this will give your future employers also a very good insight into your experience that you got from here. A portfolio should document the courses that you have taught and are teaching. So in the teaching portfolio that you are preparing for the AdjunktPædagogikum, we ask you to document all the teaching that you have done, not only at AAU. Please keep that in mind, because later on, as a matter of professional practice, you may be only asked to document your teaching over the last 2 years or so. But here for the AdjunktPædagogikum, we really want you to go back to when you started, to really reflect on all the different courses that you have taught so far. Any methods, teaching methods that you have used. And again, this is very unique to the discipline that you are in. Anything that you have used, you can think about teaching in the broadest sense. Whether this is online teaching or face-to-face, whether you have done group work or individual, supervision, things like that. Assessment practices and so forth. Also, your effectiveness as a teacher, and of course, effectiveness is hard to evaluate yourself. You can reflect on how you think you are doing in your teaching, but you can also document it by, for instance, any feedback that you have received, course evaluations, anything that also where your students have referred to the teaching that they have got from you. And also, it should also show how you assess and improve your teaching. So it should be a place for reflection and forward thinking. How do I think my teaching is right now? What is really good? Where do I want to improve? Or what new things do I want to try out? All that can take place in a portfolio. And just a little side comment, if you have used portfolios, or if you start using them and you find them very useful, keep also in mind that portfolios can be used for students as well, as learning portfolios. And especially for, I think it's a useful teaching method to consider in a university like Aalborg University, where we have this PBL format with the project works. If students do portfolios of the projects, for instance, that they have that they are doing over the years, they can really come up with some very nice documentation when they then move on to find jobs also. So this is something that you may wish to discuss with your study board as a teaching innovation, or something that you would like to introduce in your own teaching. But this is just a small prompt. Like I said, there will be a portfolio that is going to be introduced for the entire university, and it will be and everyone at university, not only here as part of the AdjunktPædagogikum, but as a university teacher, will be asked to keep and update a teaching portfolio. This is current. It will be available in Danish and in English, and there's a link to that. This portfolio that is currently available online is being trialed, as I mentioned, as far as I understand, latest by June, they will have a final version of that. And this means that when at the end of this AdjunktPædagogikum, we will you have produced your reflective portfolio, but for example, if after the AdjunktPædagogikum you want to apply for an associate professor position, let's say that, you will need evidence of your teaching qualification, and for that you need your portfolio. But the portfolio that you submit for that purpose does not need the level of reflections and personal thoughts in there. So that means that it will then be, you collapse it down to something that you can then use for such purposes. But for that reason, we're using the same template. So all you need to do is just smaller it in size for applications. Yeah, I have the portfolio that is online, and I will show you in a second. Is not the is the university portfolio that is going to be used for your ongoing documentation of professional practice. The portfolio that you are asked to use in the AdjunktPædagogikum is asks for more reflection. I've got a paper copy here. There's an online copy on Moodle, and I talk through the different areas. The thing is that you will use this also to discuss with your supervisors, and it's their role to go back to some of the reflections that you have made to say, so what if, or can you do something different? Have you thought about? And so you can add these different questions to your to this portfolio as it develops. But before I look at the specifics of the portfolio, I want to give you some introduction about what a portfolio really should include. Portfolios traditionally should include three main things. They should include your personal teaching, a statement of your personal teaching philosophy. And I will explain what this means. It should include a presentation of evidence of your teaching, anything that you can present, materials. And it should include reflective and summary statements about the evidence that you have produced. So specifically what this means is a personal teaching, when you have to write a statement of personal teaching philosophy, it's, and sorry about the small writing, it is, like it says, it's a very broad personal statement. It should answer any or more of the following questions. How do you teach? Why do you teach? Why do you teach the way you do? What are your teaching goals, your methods and strategies? So in a very broad sense, it's not about saying, oh, I have to teach these sort of theories also, but really bigger picture things. It does not, describe the content of the course, but it's about your goals. Also, is in your goals as being a teacher. You know, do you want to be a teacher, for example, who students can connect with? A teacher where students see themselves in the future. I want to be like this person. This could be one of your goals that you set yourself. Refinement of the statement is important because we all grow in our own teaching experience. So reflection is one of the strongest tools as a teacher. You are constantly faced by challenges of your teaching. You start a new program, a new course, and you've got some great ideas, and not all of your students are convinced of the ways of how you do that. So rather than feeling insecure about a response, you can be very reflective. You can go back to your students and say, what did you think about the way how I approached it this time? And this will help you become a better teacher. And so this is what can be in here. So teaching philosophy is work in progress. It's really something that develops. The way how you teach now is not the same how you taught when you were the first time in a classroom. Presentation of evidence, and there's different types of material that you can have in there. Personal material, and that includes statements of your teaching responsibilities, including any specific courses or brief descriptions of the courses. Personal teaching goals can be in there. Course syllabi, so anything that you want to use that is specific in order to explain what you are doing. For example, also descriptions of steps that you've taken to evaluate and improve one's teaching. So structured material that you have used, for example, a semester evaluation or quizzes, feedback, things like that. So you can share this here. Curriculum revisions. Any feedback that has come and has resulted in a change of the curriculum. Self-evaluation. So this includes also, and I have to explain, an explanation of any contradictory or unclear documents or materials in the teaching portfolio. Let's say you are saying that you in your teaching philosophy statement, you say that you are interested in what your students bring to you and how they enrich the teaching, and then some material that you're presenting, for example, from assessment also, is testing primarily content knowledge, but you still want to show that you've had very good outcomes. So this may not really echo your wish for students to implement their own knowledge. So there's a space for you to explain why the material that you have added is a little bit different from what someone might expect. You can include publications on teaching, so anything that you have written about, reflected on in a peer-reviewed or journal environment, or any contributions, perhaps conference presentations on some work that you have done with students. And any information on direction, supervision of students, so any kind of students from bachelor to PhD. Evidence can also include material from others, and this is, for example, supervisors, peers, colleagues who have observed your teaching and have written a short statement. So, for example, it's a good practice when you contact your supervisors to ask them how they are going to give you feedback. People do this differently, and so, for example, I always give the people who I supervise also some written material that they can use if they wish so as part of their portfolio. You can use any statements from your colleagues if they think that what you're doing in your teaching is really special. So you can say, why don't you write this to me so I can use it? That will be fine. Any sort of student or course evaluations that you have received, department statements about your teaching, anyone saying something really positive, do include it. Really think about the different ways of how you can get feedback and use it also. Performance reviews, any awards that you may have received, and other recognition. And here's also a note, if there are opportunities for you to take part in any presentations or do something more innovative at the university, do volunteer. Try it. You know, it puts you. It asks more work, but it will be also very rewarding for you as a teacher and also as a professional, and will add to your profile if you do that. And you never know, you might be selected as the teacher of the year also. Invitations from other schools to demonstrate effective teaching. Some of you may be invited because you are a very engaging teacher, or you may be asked as a guest speaker at other places because of your presentation skills. Documentation of teaching development or other institutions, teaching research that you have done, or analysis of video recordings of your teaching. So you some of us work with that, and if you get that, you can also add this material. Or student grades. Why not share, if useful, the outcomes of your the evaluation of the work that you have done. And more evidence that you can use, products of good teaching. And this is something that you may wish to add as an appendix. Yes? What was that last one? Student grades? Student grades, yes. So it means, for example, we are just doing exams. Huh? And let's say you have had a course and it looks like most of your students pass. Huh? Let's say, in your group exams also. This is a very nice way to document also that your teaching has been effective, that your students seem to make good progress and all that. It's externally assessed. You have a censor in the group exams, so it's a valid form of material that you can use. Yes? It could be the case that that you're teaching as that you have the ability to work in such a way that you have also very good student outcomes. I'm just saying it's not necessarily a way to assess whether you are a good teacher or not. But if you have good student outcomes, why not share them? It's just a suggestion. But for example, but let's take a different. Let's make up a case. So, for example, you're very interested in assessment, and assessment is a challenge to students and to teachers. But you help your students to progressively practice their abilities to successfully pass the assessment at the end. So, for instance, you have mock exams, you have presentations. You get students to video record each other when they present, to also critique each other in how they do their presentations. And at the end, you find that most of your students lift themselves a little bit. So you still have the bell curve, perhaps in terms of student outcomes, but you can see that there is a progression from perhaps the years before. It's not necessarily a given, or it's not such an easy calculation that you can say, I'm a good teacher and therefore all my students are going to have 12s in their exams. But sometimes you can, your teaching actually, in a perfect world, it may also result in better student outcomes. And the other thing is also, let's also be aware that we are teaching and learning is not a one-sided activity. Learning is, when I work with my students, I try and stress that learning is an active, you have to be active in order to learn. They cannot just come and sit in the classroom and expect to get all the information just from sitting there. So they have to work really hard on that. So it's a two-way thing. But you can develop this relationship with your students, and you can see how that also lifts over time student outcomes. It's always dependent, of course, on the individuals that you have in your classes, and some years the classes that you're working with are more responsive to your teaching, and sometimes they are more challenging. So it's not necessarily such an easy thing to do. But what I'm saying is, if you have evidence of that kind, why not use it? Oh, no. No.
A question from Copenhagen.
Yep.
So I'm wondering how you document these evaluations from students or colleagues. If they're sent to you either in semester evaluations or in personal emails, what's the best way to sort of cite them and to authenticate them or reference them in your portfolio?
The thing is that feedback that you get from your students, you can a good way is for you to write about that, and you say, these are the things that I implemented this year in my teaching. These were the active things that I tried out or so, and this is what my students said in response to it. Or you can turn it around and say, last year my student feedback was, for example, I didn't like her standing in front of the class the whole time, and so in response to this feedback, I changed my way of teaching, and I tried to have more group activities during whole class engagement, and I walked around more. And one of the feedback of my students was they liked it.
So thank you for that, and I have a further question. Do you actually quote the student's name?
No.
Do you quote the correspondence date of the email? Is it completely anonymous? And
no. Look, the thing is that the student feedback, I would treat. Be smart about that. If you receive, for example, feedback from school evaluations, they are typically done on Survey Exact, so then you may only have the reference to the course, but not the individual, so you don't have the names there anyway. But that information, for example, is made public. It is available on the school's website, so you can use it, but there are no names involved. If a student gives you feedback and says, go ahead, use my name, obviously it's then the positive feedback that you want to use, then you may want to do that as well. But it's, in general, I would tend to use feedback anonymous and just refer to the course and perhaps say a third semester student or something like that. Yep.
thank you.
Yep. So the products of your teaching evidence can be student essays, creative work, anything that you say, see what I have done. Here's something really unique I want to share. I want to show that I'm doing some really innovative, inspiring teaching. I have tried something new. If you've got an example of that, you can have that in your portfolio. You can post any sort of teaching material that you produced as a result of the workshops that you are going to do. So the workshops that you will take part in, most of them will involve you producing something, reflecting actively on something, thinking about your own teaching practice, making suggestions of some changes perhaps to your current teaching. that would be a useful material to add to a teaching portfolio. Any evidence about the effect of your courses on student career choices. For example, you get an email back from a student who said, this was so good, I got a job. You know, I'm finished now and I have, it worked all fine for me. Those sort of materials are, of course, something that you want to add to your portfolio, because it underlines the work that you have put in. Any statement from alumni, so any students who have finished and contact you and say, this has been such a great experience, obviously this is going to add to furnishing your portfolio. And examples of student essays who you could do that, graded student essays or work that shows really the spread of work that you have that has been produced. So if you want to do that. So it's just to give you a lot of options as to what you could include in as material in your portfolio. And the third part in the portfolio are the reflective or summary statements about your evidence. And the reflections are very important. As I said, the portfolio is a growing document, and the part of the reason why we ask you to do the portfolio here in the AdjunktPædagogikum is to be very conscious about this reflective part. And so reflections allow you to identify your teaching goals, the things that you want to achieve, and to then see how this has worked. Of course, the goals are set in a specific context. So you may want to say, at the moment, I'm teaching primarily large classrooms, 200 students. My goal for the next year is that I really want to get better in engaging with people or large groups of that size over 2 hours. It can be very tricky. So that could be your goal, and then you reflect on that and you say, I have actively taken those steps in order to address this goal, and this is how it worked. And next time I want to refine this a little bit. So this is what you should be doing here. You should summarize your data, giving contextual clarification where needed. So you may have described an intervention that you have done, and you have asked your students for feedback. So give a description. So many students have said this, and this is how I responded to that, and this is how I want to move on from here. And the reflective statement can be of any length. I mean, this is really up to you. How long and how much you want to write about that. And it allows you to incorporate your evidence. It should correspond to the evidence you're using, and explain its importance, its relevance. Why, what's significant about that in order to direct the reader to it. So now I would like to quickly show you the portfolio. And Lars, if I could ask you to hand out the paper copies, and if I just do this here, give you, oh, okay. We have to, yeah, sorry. So has everyone got a paper copy? Good. Now, what I first want to show you is just for now, the Danish version, and there's also, like I said, the English version of the portfolio that all Aalborg University teachers will have to fill out as a matter of professional development. And but like I said, this is currently being evaluated and being trialed, so there may be some small changes. And so it actually, you can see it talks about some of the things that I discussed. So it's not the same as the paper copy that you've got now in your hand. I'm just going to show you what is going to be expected from you to keep in a Danish or English version. So you can see it starts with this personal teaching philosophy statement at the beginning. Your CV in terms of describing the courses, your teaching experience, then any examples, evidence of administrative duties, teaching-related things. Perhaps you are sitting on the study board or doing those sort of have those sort of responsibilities. Then an overview over any sort of pedagogical qualifications that you may have accumulated, and any pedagogical development that you have done, and any changes that you have initiated in your own teaching that you should include, any prizes or awards that you may have received, and any changes that you have implemented in response to the feedback that you have received, and any additional material. So it follows very much what I just explained to you, these different areas that you have to discuss. This format is what you are asked for is not quite as reflective, but this is the normal ongoing portfolio that you will be asked to develop. And for the AdjunktPædagogikum, you will be asked to use this template. And I'll just quickly go through. You will see the big difference here is that we didn't start with teaching with a statement of teaching philosophy up front, but we ask you to start with, apart from your name and department, with also naming your supervisors. So they, to indicate also that they play a significant role here, that they are also asked to review and give you feedback on what you're writing and all that. And then we are asking you in a similar way to list your teaching CV. And for that, please, like I mentioned earlier, start where you started. So the first time you were teaching, refer to all the things, because you may have come from a different place, a different university, and you may have already quite a substantial background on teaching experience. So please list this in here. Then an overview with any course administration, maybe you're a semester coordinator, maybe course coordinator. That's the place to write it, and this can be as long as you like. Please also note here, this format of this portfolio, if you wish to be more creative about it, please be. You can change this format completely. You can come up with your own interpretation. That's absolutely fine. There's no expectation that you have to use these headlines. Also, just be mindful that that there are, some of these questions are put in there with a particular for a particular reason, and also if you do use this template, it will help you at the end of the course to collapse it into the normal portfolio that you will have to submit for your ongoing professional development. So as on the third point here is the description of your personal reflections on teaching. And what I left the comment here, and it's hard to read on the paper copy, but you will have this online so you can enlarge it. It's just that I wanted to put the prompt in because I've just used the headline of what is currently in the written in the portfolio, but I think it's perhaps, if you haven't done this before, it's difficult to write about your teaching philosophy. So again, this is about writing not about course content, but how do you teach and why do you teach in a particular way. So, and this is a very, very unique thing, and it reflects your own personality, it reflects your own experiences as a learner and as a teacher, and also what you aspire to. You may have worked with really inspirational people already, and you want to be like this person, or want to adopt some of the strategies that they have used, or work towards that. Then we are asking you for an overview of your qualifications within university pedagogy. You may have done some courses. Someone contacted or talked to me today about being involved in a larger project that is focusing on teaching innovation. That's where you should write about this. So here's anything that you have done or are doing in the course of this AdjunktPædagogikum and before. And please also here, important is that you are asked to reflect on the insights that you have gained from this activity. So this is where we want you to expand on what you would usually perhaps write in your portfolio. We want you to not only list what you have done, but also what you have done. Let's say a course on doing group assessment. So what? What have you learned? How is it going? How did it affect your ongoing practice? That's what we want you to write and reflect on here. You should also provide some overview of your competence development as a course coordinator. So you may have worked with someone together, and the following year you were given the semester coordination or anything like that. That can be written in here. You may have been asked to develop course material. You were asked as part of curriculum revision to rewrite a course structure or things like that. So this is what you can add in here. Any teaching awards that you may have received, and there are different possibilities here. Any goals that you have set yourself in the AdjunktPædagogikum. So this is a very important part here as well. You want to oops, no, what have I done? Oh yeah. So the goals that you have set yourself, you should, and this is also where the evolving part of the portfolio comes in. So you should really start with this straight away. You should say, now, this is what I want to do now. This is where I am right now, and for the next 6 months, I want to work specifically on this and that. Those are the things that seem to me very important. Over the course of the next 6 months, you may get feedback from your supervisors that prompt you to think, oh, now I can do this. Now I can go one step further and I can try out something new. Or my supervisor pointed out to me that I'm really good at explaining my students some highly abstract concepts. So perhaps that's something that I can explore a little bit further. So again, your goals should evolve as well, and you should reflect on them. You should really then write about what you would like to learn and what sort of insights you have gained from the feedback that you have got. Remember again the structure that we have got here. So you are in your peer groups, you are with the supervisors, so there are lots of people who can and should give you feedback. So it's there should be plenty of opportunities for you to review your goals, to say, to talk to other people and say, what do you think about that? How do you do that? And I have tried this. What's your response to that? So all that can be added and reflected on in here. Then any changes that you have carried out on your own initiative. So you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to restructure an entire course, but it may be just a very small change. And this is a very individual thing. You know, if you are a shy person in a large classroom situation, then maybe the change for you personally is that you don't hide behind the computer anymore, but that you feel comfortable standing in front of people. Small things, sometimes bigger things. You may want to introduce doing quick quizzes or something to get an idea of what do my students already know, and what do I want them to, you know, how can I build on what I know about their previous learning? Little things like that. Then any reflections on how you have achieved your goals in the AdjunktPædagogikum, and any changes you have implemented as part of that. So you set yourself a goal, you are reflecting on how that has been achieved, and then as a consequence, what's happening here. Then any plans for future development. So you maybe there's a conference coming up and you want to present that at that conference some innovative way of doing your teaching. That could go in here. Any documents that you wish to include in your portfolio. So here you can list things and they should sort of then come as an appendix. And here, number 12 and 13, finally, at the end of this of the AdjunktPædagogikum, when you are finished with your portfolio, you are asked to send this portfolio to your 2 supervisors, and they have to read and give you feedback, and then they have to write a comment about their assessment of your performance during this period. And they have to write that, they will share it with you, and then this will be submitted, and then you will get your certificate as well. Just so you know how this is going to work. So at the moment, you don't have to have your supervisor commenting in those boxes. They are reserved until at the very end for them to review how the work with you has, you know, how they have experienced you as a reflective practitioner. So are there at this point any questions about the portfolio? Yes.
An average size of the portfolio.
An
average size.
It really differs. Some, you know, it's the thing is, you want to have addressed all those points in some way. And some people can do this in a very short, brief, concise way, and others need to write or have lots of evidence or have pictures, things like that, in order to support the material. I think that the length of the portfolios that I have seen vary greatly. So you have portfolios that are maybe 10 pages, some that are 20 pages. There's no expectation as to how long this is going to be, because your background is also different. You know, there's some people come with very little prior teaching experience, and some come with a lot of teaching experience, but they haven't done an AdjunktPædagogikum. So there's no real formula to it. Another question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a format for how we should list our courses
No, no.
study board? Is there a recommended format?
No, there isn't. There isn't. You can. This is completely up to you. The thing is, again, see, for example, if you are, if all your teaching was done at Aalborg University, then you could use course numbers or so. But let's say you've come from a different university, then a course number to us doesn't mean anything. So you will have to adopt it to what's your background, and all that. Make it. You have to write it in a way that another person assessing your portfolio can read it and understand it.
Hi, my name is Barrett. I'm a bit unsure about kind of the thoroughness of the portfolio, because it seems that in some of the documents on Moodle, it's described that the portfolio should be really brief and only 3 to 4 pages with a few attachments.
Yeah.
And I think what you describe is a lot more elaborate.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the difference between the portfolio that you will need for your ongoing, evidencing your ongoing professional development, and the portfolio during the AdjunktPædagogikum. The one for the AdjunktPædagogikum is an extended version. We want all of your teaching experience, but the one that you use then thereafter will be a shorter one, where, for example, people are only asked to write about the teaching over the last 2 years, but not the last 10 years. So there's a difference, and that's why the one that you use after the AdjunktPædagogikum will be a much shorter one. Yep. So if you have time, and the next speaker, Andrew, who is going to talk about the English teaching certification, will start at 3:15. So if you have time, then I strongly encourage you to start already writing some of the things in the portfolio while you're here. Then you can ask for more clarification if something is not so clear. Perhaps maybe start with goals that you want to set yourself at this point. Maybe start with your teaching philosophy. That's a nice thing. Other things like listing your courses and all that is a more straightforward activity. So we'll talk again at otherwise at 3:15.